Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I've covered every debate. You can count on me. I do this every time, and I can tell you this. This one was the most contentious, most fiery, most exciting, most exhilarating, most pummeling of all the debates. And yeah, I know I got people going, well, there was no Tulsi Gabbard. Yo, you don't need Tulsi Gabbard when people are desperate. You got people fighting for their very existence right now, Johnson. And they're not trying to go quietly. They want to be in this thing all the way to the end. So they're willing to put it all out. That's what happened today in Nevada. We all know they go to the polls, caucuses on Saturday. It's going down. Ladies and gentlemen, this was everything. Okay, so let me frame this up right. For the first time, billionaire buying his way through the election process. The man we all love to hate, Michael Bloomberg, he made his appearance today. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, guys, I was not impressed with the performance of Michael Bloomberg. I mean, how much money do you have? You have so much money. Why didn't you buy somebody to teach you how to debate? All the money in the world can't buy you a better backstory. All the money in the world can't buy you a better talking point. All the money in the world can't change your history. No, it can't. It can't change your record. What's the saying, folks? If you can't run on your record, maybe you shouldn't run. I said if you can't run on your record, maybe you shouldn't run, Michael Bloomberg. It was embarrassing, guys. It was embarrassing. So here we go. You got everyone on the stage getting ready for the face-off of tonight. And yes, I brought a couple of clips with us. Bloomberg, the mighty, mighty centrist. Look at him standing off to the side by himself. No one even wants to be around this guy. He's unliked, unwanted, and he's up on the stage. Why? He didn't fit in. Why is the billionaire hippie dude on the stage?
And there you have all 6 candidates on
stage. This guy inserts himself into the debates, only to be embarrassed, totally embarrassed by his lack of ability to actually counterpunch. There was no counterpunching at all out of Bloomberg. It's as if he was, dare I say it, Johnson, maybe the man was just unprepared. Yeah, he was just unprepared. He wasn't ready. Hold on. I did come ready. What I did not prepare for was to be ganged upon by peasants. These peasants up there on the stage with me, a businessman, a man who created something of himself. Sure, I did it on the corpses and the rotting flesh of peasants and poor people and the blacks. But someone had to do it. How else can enterprise be built in America? It is the American way to pillage and slaughter the innocents. Did make me quite a lot of money. It was evil, but I would do it again, damn it. I would do it again. Capitalism is the only way. Thus we eat the young and the disenfranchised for breakfast. It is what we do. And if you are handing a victory to Donald Trump, if you don't be like Donald Trump, which is just like me, because I and Donald Trump are the same person. I'm a foot shorter. He's a hell of a lot fatter. But we are the same individual. Folks, I want to let you know, when I say this was a contentious debate, make no mistake about it, I'm not exaggerating. Guys, there were moments, though they were short, there were times I literally felt like, I can't say I felt bad for Michael Bloomberg, but I did feel like, ow, God, fight back, man. Dude, at least put your hand up. Block some of this shit. You had to block something. He was blocking punches with his jaw. Just taste. Look, watch this.
Turnout in the history of the United States. Mr. Bloomberg had policies in New York City of stop and frisk, which went after African-American and Latino people in an outrageous way. That is not a way you're going to grow voter turnout. What our movement is about is bringing working-class people together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, around an agenda that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. And that agenda says that maybe, just maybe, we should join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all people as a human right, raise that minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour, and have the guts to take on the fossil fuel industry, because their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet and the need to combat climate change. Those are some of the reasons we have the strongest campaign to defeat Donald Trump.
So Mayor Bloomberg, can Senator Sanders beat President Trump, and how do you want to respond to what else he said?
I don't think there's any chance of the senator beating President Trump. You don't start out by saying, I've got 160 million people, I'm going to take away the insurance plan that they love. That's just not a ways that you go and start building the coalition that the Sanders camp thinks that they can do. I don't think there's any chance whatsoever. And if he goes and is the candidate, we will have Donald Trump for another 4 years, and we can't stand that.
So
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg. Democrats are not going to win if we have a nominee who has a history of hiding his tax returns, of harassing women, and of supporting racist policies like redlining and stop and frisk. Look, I'll support whoever the Democratic nominee is, but understand this: Democrats.
What do you want? What do you want? Bloomberg is over there like, hold on. Did y'all say go? I wasn't ready. No, I thought we was, this in practice, I thought we was just talking. What? Did you already say go? Jesus, rewind that. I didn't get that. Now the question was, Elizabeth Warren. Jesus, Mugabe. Elizabeth Warren came out swinging. Bernie Sanders came out swinging. This was the opening of the debates, ladies and gentlemen. This wasn't later when people get tired of one another. You know, you're up there for a while. Someone said something early in the first hour that has you a little ticked off. So you say, let's let loose. We're running out of time. Time for a Hail Mary. No, this was the beginning. I think the question was, hey, Bernie, how you feeling? Now, actually, the question was, why do we need a revolution, and why do you think a revolution can replace Donald Trump? So Bernie's response was, you definitely don't want this guy over here. This guy's horrible. This guy, the blacks are gonna run away from they're gonna run away from the party. They're not gonna get blacks to come out and vote for you, or Latinos. This guy's policies suck. He's not gonna be able to run away from that. That's horrible. This guy right here, he's not gonna be able to incite anybody. No one's gonna come out with this guy on the helm. And then you got him, you got Bloomberg. Like, you had to know that these things are gonna come up, Bloomberg. This isn't some softball interview with Gayle King on ABC. This is the Democratic debate. Is seeing the world over. This is the big stage, the thing you've been buying into, and you're on it now. And you come out flat-footed as hell. Did you cut your feet off? I'm wondering. Bloomberg came out flat-footed and unable to respond to Bernie Sanders. And did you notice he was like pausing for applause? For what? He didn't say anything, Bloomberg. But I got to give it to Elizabeth Warren on this one. She really pummeled the guy. I mean, what a setup. That's what you call being prepared to level a guy. Well, listen here, buddy. We got ourselves a guy who referred to women as fat and ugly and rat-faced, dog-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Michael Bloomberg. This guy, He can't be our nominee. Oh, fiddly sticks. He can't be our nominee. This guy is horrific. It started off bad for Michael Bloomberg, and it continued mostly that way through the whole debate. I mean, obviously, he's rusty as a nail. He don't need to be up there. He jumps. It's like a guy jumping in the NFL after playing Little League or intramural sports backup, not even a starter in high school, and he jumps out there in the All-Pro, like in the Pro Bowl, and like he wants to show off. This guy got dismantled from bell to bell. I'm telling you, it was so bad. It was like, it was almost like watching a snuff film. So things continue. Now, most of the candidates, I guess they decided, we're going to go in on Michael Bloomberg. It was sort of like an unspoken rule. But of course, one person did not go along with the script, and that person would be Pete the Sneak. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg, he started off hitting like Bloomberg in his first, like a little, but then he went right at Bernie Sanders, bringing up health care, how you going to pay for it, and a bunch of, Pete Buttigieg. I know I live in a country where there's a lot of different Americans within this country, because somewhere in this country exists people who find Pete Buttigieg impressive. He never says anything, Johnson. Nothing he says is ever tangible. And you know why he doesn't say anything that's tangible? He doesn't really know shit. He hasn't really done shit. He doesn't really know shit. I'm sorry, guys. We got to cut the crap. We got to stop mincing words. The reality is, and they can call this an attack if they want to, the reality is Pete Buttigieg hasn't done anything in politics to know what the hell he's talking about. He don't deserve to be on that stage. He doesn't know. Now, I disagree with Elizabeth Warren on a couple of things, such as trustworthiness, firmness, and a backbone. These things matter to me. I disagree with Amy Klobuchar on a couple of things. I disagree with Joe Biden on a couple of things. But at least they know what they're talking about. I mean, Pete just runs out the clock and loves to hear himself talk. And when you try to interrupt him to say something substantive, he just continues and stretches out his words. Bernie Sanders hit Pete Buttigieg about the billionaires again. Oh, you and the billionaires. The billionaires. Because Pete went at him about health care. Like in the beginning, when we focused on Bloomberg, the guy who just stabbed us all in the back, jumped up on stage, threw $300,000 at the DNC. 2 days later, they changed the rules. That's right, America. Michael Bloomberg gave the DNC $300,000. 2 days later, his ass was on the debate stage. That's what happened. Look it up. It's not me making it up. It's not fake news. It's out there. A lot of you don't know about it. Look it up. The party is for sale, and Bloomberg, like everything else in his life, he brought it. His friends, his wives, everything, he buys it. His votes, his support, all paid for. And something else happened, and I'll tell you, this part pissed me off a lot because I'm really tired of hearing about it. It's getting very old, and it's been peddled by so many of bad actors, so many horrible actors. A lot of these guys, a lot of them are paid for by the Bloombergs, by the DNC. Somehow they're collecting money from something related to an elitist part of the Democratic Party. Okay? And that narrative, guys, is Bernie Sanders supporters are bad. Bernie Sanders supporters are evil. Bernie Sanders need to control it. They let Pete Buttigieg stay on this topic of unknown people on the internet, guys, for at least 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, when we could have been talking about substantive issues like poverty, mass incarceration, ending wars, coronavirus, anything. Yo, for 10 minutes, they allowed Pete Buttigieg to berate Bernie Sanders supporters, people who say they're like people that are said to be Bernie Sanders supporters. Not, like nameless people on the internet who said mean things. Folks, I don't know how this has been allowed to be a thing as long as it's been. It's a slap in the face for anybody who wants to get down to substantive, real conversations about real issues. But it was disgusting to have to sit through it. To have to sit through Pete. And Bernie's comeback was a very strong comeback. He's like, we got over 10.5 million followers on Twitter alone. 10.5. Whatever you're talking about is a small, very small percentage of 10.5 million people on Twitter. That's not counting Facebook. That's not counting YouTube. That's not counting any message boards. That's not counting Reddit or 4chan or 8chan or anything else. That is just Twitter. How many followers does Elizabeth Warren have? 3 million? Like, when I brought this issue up, when I had a debate with one of the most disingenuous people that appears on MSNBC, I brought this up. He dismissed it. I said, Bernie has the most supporters. It's logical that if you have the most supporters, then there are going to be all types of people. They're going to make more noise. You got more people. In any other rational mind, if you got more people and you make more noise, it makes sense. 3 people make more noise than 1 person. 100 people make more noise than 20 people. But for some reason, to the Pete Buttigiegs of the world, the Pete Buttigieg's, and these lying, these scumbags. Look, I'm spending too much time on it now. It just really pisses me off. They try to gaslight Bernie Sanders to defend something that you cannot contain or defend. People that don't work for you, who don't have real names. You're on a platform he doesn't own. Like, social media is a public website anybody can go to. You don't have to be on it. If you feel people are harassing you on it, log the fuck off. Why are you still there? Why not block them? Why not make your tweets private? You have all these mechanisms in play at your fingertips. And for some reason, we know the reason, don't we, Johnson? We know the reason. MSNBC and all of them want to play victim. They want to use this against Bernie Sanders. They want to incite Bernie Sanders supporters in order to have a way to cop a plea, to play like, oh, we're so wounded. It was horrible. It was a waste of time. Not one mention of mass incarceration. Not one mention of poverty other than from Bernie Sanders. No mention at all about child care. None. No mention at all. But 10 minutes. 10 minutes about Twitter people. Most disgusting shit on earth, man. I'm trying to tell you. Okay, so I had an interview with a guy named Aaron Glantz, who wrote an incredible book called Home Wreckers. You guys should go check it out. Home Wreckers by Aaron Glantz is on Amazon. We talked about the housing crisis. It's about the housing crisis, the housing free fall that we had in 2007, 2008. Well, in our conversation, we're going to air this, I'll probably air it early next week. We talked about Elizabeth Warren, and she may bring this up, and she did it, Johnson. Elizabeth Warren brings up the fact that, Bloomberg blamed black people being able to get loans, finally, after being trapped and locked out of the housing market to a very large extent due to redlining. He blamed that. He blamed those black people for the housing collapse of 07 and 08. Elizabeth Warren took him to task for it. She did a good job at it as well. That, to me, should have been more of a substantive conversation about how this imaginary book, he scapegoated black folks for a problem that we all know is related to him and his friends. Bloomberg and his friends made the money. Trump and his friends made the money. But we blame people with no agency. The most vulnerable people in the country who got the worst loans because the loan officers offered it to them. The mortgage brokers offered it to them. The banks offered it to them. Had the worst interest rates. Had the worst adjustable mortgages of any group. But Bloomberg blamed them. So it was a good job of Elizabeth Warren to call that out. I appreciate her doing it. Warren says Buttigieg's plan. Now, this was a great part. In fact, Warren had her best performance in the last 3 debates. I will give her that. She had her best performance of the last 3 debates. There was one part where Warren called out Buttigieg because they were going at Bernie for us, as usual, true to form as every other debate. They want to go at Bernie Sanders about Medicare for all. No one talks about any solution that's better than Medicare for all, but as usual, Bernie's fighting off everybody on stage, attacking him for wanting to give everyone health care and cut the profits of the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies. That's all he wants to do. Look, nowhere is he saying he's taking away insurance from anyone. What's he going to do is take away cost at point of service, take away deductibles, take away premiums, but no one wants to hear it. So we keep having the same mundane, boring, disingenuous conversation. Keep your provider, keep your doctor, right? But we got to change the way in which we conduct insurance in this country. We got to take it out of the private market because they're robbing us. The market don't love you, mofo. So anyway, they're all piling on Bernie. Bernie's fighting them off. Had to do this all night, by the way. Fight them off. Fight off hungry-ass candidates looking to stay alive in a race where they're dying. Okay? He's the front runner. It's to be expected. We should expect this. No one should be shocked that Bernie's got a lot of incoming fire. That's what happens when you're the guy in front. Or the woman in front. When you're the person in front, Johnson. Elizabeth Warren. This is what she said. She said that, let me get this right. She said Amy Klobuchar. No, she started with Pete Buttigieg. She said Pete Buttigieg, he don't have a plan. He doesn't have a healthcare plan. He's got a PowerPoint presentation. It's not a plan. It's a bunch of pictures. It's a PowerPoint presentation. Bam! Then she said, Amy Klobuchar shouldn't even have a PowerPoint. She's got Post-it notes. Elizabeth Warren said Amy Klobuchar's healthcare plan is a bunch of Post-it notes on a board. Later on, she went a step further. She said Amy Klobuchar's plan is not a plan, it's 2 paragraphs. Ladies and gentlemen, Elizabeth Warren scored again on Amy Klobuchar. Painful. And this was good because Amy Klobuchar has been climbing in the rankings. I've been wondering, a lot of people have been wondering, how is Amy Klobuchar doing so well? She has no signature policies. She has no plans. She's still talking about Pell Grants. She's not a good debater. She wastes our time talking about erroneous things instead of answering questions. She goes around the bend, through the woods, up the valley, stops by the store before she even mentions what you asked her to begin with. But still, somehow, there are a lot of people who like Amy. They go on TV. They're in Iowa. They're in New Hampshire. And they like Amy. They think Amy's smart and funny. Up there stammering. Fake stammering. People buy the fake stammer. It's disgusting. I know somewhere right now Kamala Harris is sitting just seething, just smoke coming out of her ears, steam coming off her forehead. Her braids are on fire. She's just sitting there. Oh, they got rid of me for her? They liked her more than me? They liked her more than me? I can't believe it. It's unbelievable. Hillary's like, get in line, sister. Get in line. But yeah, Amy Klobuchar, round the bend, through the woods, she went. Sleepy Joe finally had something to say. I mean, Sleepy Joe was pretty much for most of this, he was just asleep. I don't know what it was. He was just gone. It was like, and then all of a sudden he woke up. All of a sudden he woke up and he talked about. He was like, "What about me? Hey, first things first, I'm going to talk about health care. I'm going to say a bunch of things I've said in every other debate. None of them are going to be new or original or very interesting. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Obama, how Obama and I were walking down the street, and then back to that, we were doing after I was the one who was in charge of sealing him. I was the only one who ever passed anything here. I'm the only one who ever did anything ever. And Joe Biden's the guy who did everything. I don't know what you're talking about. Third thing this. The third thing we did, what I did was I talked to the Spanish, I talked to the Mexican president, I met with the guy. I'm the guy that sat with the guy. Come on, man. I'm the one that did the push-ups and the sit-ups and the calisthenics and the yoga, and you're fat, you don't know what you're doing. And meanwhile, while you were sitting over here doing whatever you thought you were doing, I was doing something else because I'm Joe Biden. And Barack Obama, he entrusted me, the Biden-Obama administration, he entrusted me. And the last thing, I know my time's almost up, so I'll stop here. I said, I want to say that my points are meaningless, and nothing I say here should be held against me in a court of law. And Trump mentions me on Twitter, so that makes me the front runner, even though I'm not the front runner in actual polling anymore. There. How'd I do? Yeah, how did he do? Amy's plan was horrible. Michael Bloomberg is lost. Oh, there was a part. Now, this was great, okay? This is great because we're going through the debates. Things are going horrible for Michael Bloomberg. Joe Biden's a non-factor. Pete Buttigieg, long-winded platitudes. Can it? Amy Klobuchar, not impressive. So far, the floor is owned by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders, because he came out strong, he took the incoming as usual about health care, but he was more aggressive. And now, here we are, okay? Stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is served on the table. Oh, yeah, I know we started with it, but this was from the Moderator. Check it out.
In the history
Into office, there was 650 murders a year in New York City. And I thought that my first responsibility was to give people the right to live. That's the basic right of everything. And we adopted a policy which had been in place, the policy that all big police departments use of stop and frisk. What happened, however, was it got out of control. And when I discovered that we were doing too many stop and frisks, we cut 95% of it out. And I've sat down with a bunch of African-American clergy and business people to talk about this, to try to learn. I've talked to a number of kids who'd been stopped. And I was trying to understand how we change our policies so we can keep the city safe, because the crime rate did go from 650, 50% down to 300. And we have to keep the lid on crime, but we cannot go out and stop people indiscriminately.
Mayor, thank you. Let me go to Vice President Biden on this. You want to respond to that?
Yes, let's get something straight. The reason that stop and frisk changed is because Barack Obama sent moderators to see what was going on. When we sent them there to say this practice has to stop, the mayor thought it was a terrible idea we send them there. A terrible idea. Let's get the facts straight. Let's get the order straight. And it's not whether he apologized or not. It's the policy. The policy was abhorrent. And it was, in fact, a violation of every right people have. And we are the one. Our administration sent in people to monitor it, and at the very time, the mayor argued against that. This idea that he figured out it was a bad idea. He figured out it was a bad idea after we sent in monitors and said it must stop. Even then, he continued the policy.
All right, Mayor, would you like to make a quick response to that?
Yes, I would. I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness, but the bottom line is that we stopped too many people. But the policy, we stopped too many people, and we've got to make sure that we do something about criminal justice in this country. There is no great answer to a lot of these problems. And if we took off everybody that was wrong off this panel, everybody that was wrong on criminal justice at some time in their careers, there'd be nobody else up here.
And, Senator Warren.
Let's be clear.
I'm sorry, who did you call on?
Senator Warren.
Sorry.
I do think that this really is about leadership and accountability. When the mayor says that he apologized, listen very closely to the apology. The language he used is about stop and frisk. It's about how it turned out. Now, this isn't about how it turned out. This is about what it was designed to do to begin with. It targeted communities of color. It targeted black and brown men from the beginning. And if you want to issue a real apology, then the apology has to start with the intent of the plan as it was put together and the willful ignorance day by day by day of admitting what was happening, even as people protested in your own street, shutting out the sounds of people telling you how your own policy was breaking their lives. You need a different apology.
Senator,
here,
thank you.
Chuck,
Can I respond briefly?
Let me get Senator Klobuchar. We're staying on this topic. We're going to stay on this topic, but I want to get something in here with Senator Klobuchar. When you were the top prosecutor in Minneapolis, Senator, there were at least 24 instances where police were involved in the deaths of civilians. None of those officers were prosecuted. You did prosecute a black teenager who was sentenced to life in prison, despite what are now serious doubts about the evidence. Now, the Minneapolis chapter of the NAACP has recently called for you to suspend your campaign over that case because some new evidence has come out since. Big picture, why should black and Latino voters trust your judgment now if it appears you may have gotten it wrong then?
First, I'll start with that case. It is very clear that any evidence, if there is new evidence, even old evidence, it should be reviewed by that office and by the county attorney. That must happen. I have called for that review. This was a case involving an 11-year-old African-American girl named Taisha Edwards who was shot doing her homework at her kitchen table. 3 people were convicted. One of the cases is the one that is being was investigated by a journalist, and I think it's very important that evidence come forward. In terms of the police shootings that you noted, those went to a grand jury. And I've made very clear for months now.
Jesus, I can't have you listen to that Amy Klobuchar explanation again for the inexplainable, the inexplicable, horrible decision that she made to prosecute a young man, 16 years old, a freaking child, as an adult for a murder with no murder weapon, no eyewitness on the scene, no DNA, no fingerprints, no nothing. Where they paid people. They actually paid informants. $500 is all on tape. $500 to lie about a kid. They needed a body. And what she's doing right now is gaslighting and telling you about a child that was murdered, which is a horrible thing. But it's also horrible to convict a 16-year-old, charge him as an adult in a case where you have no real evidence. So Amy Klobuchar is dead in the water. She should be done. Like like regular people listening to this should be done with Amy Klobuchar. The fact that Amy Klobuchar is still in this race with that horrible record says everything you need to know about the Democratic Party and those people why we have separate Americas. It's horrible. It's horrific. But there you go, Elizabeth Warren. Yeah, there you go, Elizabeth. Love how you did that. Elizabeth Warren pommeled Michael Bloomberg on this. This was perfect. It's not, Michael Bloomberg, first of all, an apology doesn't start with a defense of what you did. Okay? It's not a defense to say, oh yeah, well, stop and frisk was bad and I inherited it. You inherited it and you put it on steroids, homie. You came in and you accelerated it. Once we realized it was bad, well, then we stopped it. Did you realize it was bad? Did you realize it was bad at the after the first million stop and frisk? No, you didn't. Did you realize it was bad when you had protesters in the streets of New York after the first 1 million or 2 million? Or did you realize it was bad at the 3 million mark? Or maybe the 4 million mark? I mean, how much time does it take? Joe Biden gets points here as well. Joe Biden pointed it out. He said, look, let's get this straight. Let's get this straight, okay? Here we go. All right, first things first. Obama sent me down to New York to talk to Michael Bloomberg, sent a moderator in to take a look at it. We saw it. Michael Bloomberg said it was a horrible idea to even look at it, to even look at what he was doing, okay? He wanted to keep it going. The other thing, the thing that Biden didn't get to, though he did point out a lot of good points about it, where he said, Michael Bloomberg, we put it to a stop. We told him he needs to stop. It went before court. I don't know if he even added that it was ruled unconstitutional by a court. But the thing he left out was after it was stopped and after Bloomberg leaves office, crime still drops. Crime dropped without Bloomberg being there and with stop and frisk being wiped out. So that's not what made crime stop, okay? Like, we've all come to that conclusion. It's a known fact at this point. But what Bloomberg does is still defend it. He still defends a practice that was unconstitutional. And he does it by saying he saved lives. You also ruined lives. So on one hand, you got the horrible Michael Bloomberg with a horrible practice, a stop and frisk that he accelerated, only stopped because he was forced to stop. Years later, we got all the receipts of the guy still talking about, it was a good idea, we had to do it. I wish we did more of it. I wish we stopped more black people. I wish we targeted more black people. I wish we violated more constitutional rights using racial profiling. We should have did it more. That's actually what he said, Johnson. It's not even an exaggeration. Then we got Amy Klobuchar, a prosecutor who never once took on cops. The entire time she was prosecutor in Minnesota, not once. We're talking about 24 cop-related shootings, cops shooting civilians. Never once did Amy Klobuchar say, hey, maybe we should look into these. Hey, maybe let me have a look. Hey, can we have a say? Hey, what about justice? But she likes to go out on the campaign trail. And just another side note about the young man's life who she ruined, who's still in jail after 17 years. Never once does Amy Klobuchar admit that she should have looked at that evidence closer. Oh, that's right. There was no evidence, Johnson. Okay. Now, I don't think I have it. And I told you, I've already stated that there were a lot of standout moments. I thought there was a lot of good done by Elizabeth Warren here. But there was something I meant to mention earlier that Elizabeth Warren did. They took a lot of luster off of her performance, even if you thought it was well-crafted. Some of her points were well-crafted. When she was calling out healthcare plans, she called out Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. I got to ask you guys this. Oh, I got to ask you. How do you dump on a plan that you ran on for a year? How does the moderators overlook the fact you ran on Medicare for All for a freaking year, and now you're saying, well, Bernie's plan, he won't answer questions and he won't. There was a part where she sounded like Buttigieg about the plan that she once supported. And we're not talking about supporting it 3 years ago. We're not talking about she supported it in the 90s. She supported it in 2019. She ran on it. It was on her website and everything. And now she's dumping on it on network TV, along with Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the rule. If people like Chuck Todd, everybody else up there, I forget the names, Lawrence, whatever his name is, I don't know. If you're not going to make these people accountable, people like Elizabeth Warren, people like Pete Buttigieg, for the malfeasance, the false narratives, the nauseating, negligent narratives that they submit, if you're not going to hold them accountable for it, and we make memes or jokes or call them snakes or weasels or rats, you should shut up then too. I mean, how can you allow her to say Bernie's Medicare for All, anything disparaging, when she ran on it? And you not even ask her, hey, that's weird. It's like you in a relationship with somebody for 2 years, and then you tell them that they're a horrible person, that they stink, that they never wash clothes, or they never clean up the house, or they never work. They just sat on there and they're a horrible kisser. They don't know how to touch anyone or love anyone. But you were with them for 2 years and you were saying they were great. How do you do that? And if that's not snake-like activity, what is? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Good job. Kudos for everything else. But that's got to be brought up. Well, listen here, milk that head. I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I've got a problem with you guys. That's right, you men, saying negative things about me. So what if I backtrack? So what if I don't stand up? So what if I stab Bernie in the back? He deserved it. He said I was a liar just because I lied. But he said it not privately. He said it on national TV. So I owe him one, and I'm going to give it back in spades. So you can just take that milk that here, Tim Black, and fiddly sticks and root beer floats for you. Elizabeth Warren. God, I love some of the stuff she did tonight. She beat the brakes off Bloomberg. Oh, she beat the brakes off. Elizabeth Warren, really good talking about women issues. There was one part where Elizabeth Warren talked about, Michael Bloomberg has a lot of settlements. Last time I checked, I think the number was 64 out-of-court settlements with women who were formerly employees. 64. The idea that the Democrats would even consider having Michael Bloomberg do anything in this party other than clean up afterwards or pay for everything is beyond me. I mean, we got a guy, all that stuff they said about Trump being a philanderer, a pervert, or whatever, or grab him by the change purse, or any of that stuff, all that out the window. You got a guy who's worse. This elf-like figure is worse than Trump. Worse. He's Trump times 10. And without the witty comebacks and the ability to keep a crowd motivated. Yeah, none of the positive, none of the woo-wee, none of the catchy names, none of the, ranking ability, none of the comedic timing, none of it. Just horrible. So Elizabeth Warren said, hey, this guy, Michael Bloomberg, he's got all these women he had to pay them off because he was being a sexual aggressor. And he was, and it was like, my goodness gracious, how do you come back from that? What's there to talk about, dude? Why are you there? You wanted to do this? I mean, damn. Elizabeth Warren dressed this guy down on disrespecting women, and there's who can be against calling him out on that. Now, Joe Biden jumped into it because I guess Joe was tired. He's like, oh, Colin, shut up now, Bloomberg. You cheating bastard, you philandering bastard. The way you treat women's horrible. It's obscene. It's disgusting. It's offensive. And if you have the audacity to say that these women, you don't let them talk and explain themselves. Michael Bloomberg's like, well, they can talk if they want to talk, but I don't want them to talk. We signed agreements, and we put it behind us, and it was just a consensual thing, and maybe some of the women had a problem with me touching them on their backsides or on their bosoms, but that's between me and them, and I'm creepy, but that's what we do when we got a lot of money. We offend women, and that's what I did. So they signed an agreement. I gave them money. They went away. They bought nice cars that bounce and houses of that very sturdy structure, but look good. And they bought clothes that they like, so it's behind us. And why are you bringing it up, hair plug man? And Biden laid into this guy. Biden laid into him, and it was almost over the top. Biden's like, But first things first, we know what you did. You know, if you want these women to be able to talk, all you got to do is release them saying, I release you from the non-disclosure agreement. I release you from the hush money. I release you. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to say. You know, you gave them money and be quiet, and that's what you do. Like, we know how this works. You give these women money, you pay them off, and all you got to do is release them from the agreement, and then they can talk, and then we can have these conversations. And the whole time he's talking, I'm like, hey, Joe. Maybe you should, like, chill out, man. Like, you are a little creepy yourself, Joe. Yeah, you're a little creepy yourself. Maybe pull up just a little bit on Bloomberg. I mean, I want to call him out, but you're like, you know how this works. You give people money. You grab them, and then you give them money. And then you do this, and then you have your wife talk to them, and then these people talk to them. And if that don't work, then you hire a guy. The guy shows up at the job, scares the hell out of him, says, take this money or something could happen to you. You know, this is how this works. And we all know these things. This is how you. I'm running out of time. I'm out of time. Thank you. Well, other than Biden going a little bit too far, to the point of almost incriminating himself, it was a very good job. Very good job. Warren, there was something there about mining or something about, like, Nevada had very specific problems. It was a part of the show, of the debate, where they want to talk about things that actually impact Nevadans, okay? So, for some reason, someone made the mistake and they asked Amy Klobuchar. Guys, I want you to know that Amy Klobuchar is not ready for debates. I think I have this. Let's see if we have it.
99-year-old Hispanic war veteran who was a dreamer when he was brought over to this country. And back then, he just went to Canada for a night and came back, and he was a permanent citizen because they needed him to serve in World War II. Now, not so easy. The dreamers are our future. The dreamers are so important in Nevada, and the best way we can get this done is to beat Donald Trump, but it is to pass comprehensive immigration reform, which creates a path to citizenship to so many hardworking people, will bring down the deficit by $158 billion, and will bring peace for these dreamers.
Thank you so much,
no other
Senator
country but our own.
But if you're going to run based on your record of voting in Washington, then you have to own those votes, especially when it comes to immigration. You voted to confirm the head of Customs and Border Protection under Trump, who was one of the architects of the family separation policy. You voted to make English the national language. Do you know the message that sends in as multilingual a state as Nevada to immigrants? You have been unusual among Democrats, I think the Democrat among all of the senators running for president, most likely to vote for Donald Trump's judges, who we know are especially hostile to dreamers and to the rights of immigrants. Now, in South Bend, it was not always easy to stand up in a conservative place like Indiana on immigration, but we delivered. We created a municipal ID program so that dreamers and others who were undocumented were able to navigate everyday life. We stood up for those rights and stood with members of our community with the message that they were as American as we are. A los soñadores hay que decir que este país es tu país también.
I wish everyone was as perfect. I wish everyone was as perfect as you, Pete, but let me tell you what it's like to be in the arena. And number one, do the math. If my friend Andrew Yang was up here, that's what he'd say. In fact, I have opposed and not supported 2/3 of the Trump judges, so get your numbers right. And I am in the top 10 to 15 of opposing them. Number two, when it comes to immigration reform, the things that you are referring to, that official that you are referring to was supported by about half the Democrats, including someone in this room. And I will say this. He was highly recommended by the Obama officials. You know why? Because Trump had so few career people. I did not one bit agree with these draconian policies to separate kids from their parents. And in my first 100 days, I would immediately change that. And I would add one more thing. I have been in the arena. Ted Kennedy, he had made a pretty big allegation against me again, and I think I should have a right to respond.
I'm stating the facts because these are votes that you took, and those those votes set you alone among the Democrats running for president. No other is it true or is it false that no other Democrat from the Senate running for president voted that way?
First of all, what you've said about the judges are false. You are comparing me to two colleagues up here on the stage, and you are forgetting one thing.
I would say anybody who ran for president this cycle, Senator Harris, Senator Booker, saw through this.
If you could let me finish, since I've been in the arena, Ted Kennedy asked me to work on the first immigration bill. We were able, with President Bush, to at least get that bill to a vote. I'm sorry, but Senator Sanders actually opposed that bill, and I worked on it, and if we had gotten that bill done, there would have been a path to citizenship for so many people. Then I worked on the 2013 bill. I'm actually so proud of the work I've done on immigration reform, and you know what? You have not been in the arena doing that work. You've memorized a bunch of talking points and a bunch of things, but I can tell you one thing. What the people of this country want, they want a leader that has the heart for the immigrants of this country, and that is me.
You know, maybe leading a diverse city that was facing ruin doesn't sound like the arena to you. I'm used to senators telling mayors that senators are more important than mayors, but this is the arena, too. You don't have to be in Washington to matter. You don't have to be on Capitol Hill for your work to be significant.
Guys,
the arena
we are at the end. We are at the end here. We are at the end here. I got to let that one go. We are less than 2 weeks away from a national primary, and I want to ask all of you this simple question. There's a very good chance none of you are going to have enough delegates to the Democratic National Convention to clinch this nomination. Okay? If that happens, I want all of your opinions on this. Should the person with the most delegates at the end of this primary season be the nominee, even if they are short of a majority? Senator Sanders, I'm going to let you go last here because I know your view on this. So instead, I will start with you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Whatever the rules of the Democratic Party are, they should be followed. And if they have a process, which I believe they do,
I'm trying to do
so
this
that
yes or no to make it fast.
everybody can.
So you want the convention to work its will?
Yes.
Senator Warren.
But a convention working its will means that people have the delegates that are pledged to them, and they keep those delegates until you come to the convention. All of the people.
All righty. Vice President Biden?
Play by the rules.
Yes or no? Leading person with the delegates, should they be the nominee or not?
No, let the process work its way out.
Mayor Buttigieg?
Not necessarily. Not till there's a
Senator Klobuchar?
Let the process work.
Senator Sanders?
Well, the process includes 500 superdelegates on the second ballot. So I think that the will of the people should prevail. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
The most votes should become the nominee.
5 no's and a yes.
Okay. All right, so just let the record show before we get to the vote that was horrible there, as you see where they stand on actually wanting democracy to play out in the Democratic Party. It's kind of crazy, right? Let's let the record show that Amy Klobuchar has a horrible immigration record, probably one of the worst immigration records next to Joe Biden. His record's even worse. But Amy Klobuchar, I mean, at least Joe Biden could argue that he was VP. What could he do? Okay, Amy Klobuchar, not so. She made these votes that the English-speaking bill, you got to speak English. Bernie voted against that, so did Elizabeth Warren, but Amy Klobuchar voted for it. So if you do a search, you'll find that Amy Klobuchar has been backpedaling on a lot of her immigration reform votes ever since we headed towards Nevada. Okay, so articles, you can check one, there's on AP News, Politico, they've all written about Amy Klobuchar. But this goes to the larger point. This happened a couple times during the debates where Amy Klobuchar gets questioned by Pete Buttigieg on stuff that she should know he's going to hit her on. Like this is not made in a vacuum. These are articles. The article I just referenced while we were playing that tape was done 5 days ago in Politico. She had to know that this was going to come up, or it should come up. It shouldn't even come up from Pete. It should come up from the moderators. I mean, you're in Nevada. It's a very diverse state. Latino activists are there in droves. This question is going to come up, and you're not prepared for it? You should be prepared for it. So it just showed how Amy Klobuchar is not really good at handling adversity during debates. She immediately goes to like frantic mode, defensive mode, and stammering mode, and then if that doesn't work, she does the ear salad, the ear fatigue, and the word salad, and the whole run you up and down the mountain, around the bush, down the corner. Then she plays victim. Yeah, you're up there with all you memorized a whole bunch of things. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do in debates. You're supposed to know stuff. And who's the asshole in the audience going, woo, woo, because she brought up Andrew Yang? I don't know. Amy Klobuchar. Once again, this happened more than just one time. It happened several times. But, of course, the most frustrating. Actually, you know what? I'm not even frustrated by it. The most telling of all was the question about the superdelegates. Isn't it, Johnson? All of them favor. If they don't have if someone does not have all of the delegates necessary, even if most of America has chosen that person, they favor the superdelegates coming in and giving the nomination to whoever they want. Now, we all know why they say that, because most of them fear that Bernie Sanders will have most of the votes. He's been tabulated. People have been making this wager for quite some time now. Bernie looks to be a shoo-in to have the most votes. And they don't want Bernie to win it. So, of course, they want to win it. They want somebody to hand them the victory, even if most of America has not voted for them. Now, it's disgusting. It's horrible. It's undemocratic. It's all those things. So we can't stand it. But what makes it worse, guys, is these are the same people who were pissed that Donald Trump won the presidency due to the Electoral College, even though Hillary Clinton won, 3 million more votes? That's all we've been hearing from the Democrats for the last 3 years, right? Last 4 years. It's how Hillary was robbed and she won the votes and Trump's not really the president and he's illegitimate and all this stuff. Meanwhile, they're willing to do the same thing as long as it benefits them. Yeah, all of them are willing to go against the will of the people. Go against the will of the people in order for them to win. It's horrific. It's sad. It's lame as hell. It's reality, guys. How do you stop it? You don't. But I can tell you this. I'm not voting for Michael Bloomberg. I can tell you that right now. That ain't going to happen. They can give it to Michael Bloomberg if they want to. You can do that if you want to. You're going to lose, Johnson. So if the Democratic Party is dumb enough to snatch failure from the jaws of victory and implant Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, or any of these people without them actually winning it or having more votes, then you're going to get more Trump. And that's how that will work out. All right, guys. We got a little bit more left. We got closers. Let's go to the closing arguments. Closers. All right, here we go. Closers went in the order of who's most popular. So Amy, having the least amount of popularity, went first. And she had a bunch of bad jokes, lame jokes, jokes nobody gave a damn about, jokes. Why? I need to know, who was the person that told Amy she was humorous? I want to know who it was. Someone told Amy Klobuchar, you're in another life, you were a stand-up comedian. I'd like to know who that person was. I'd like to know who on staff is writing the unwitty comeback lines. There are no setups. There are no real punchlines. But still, for some reason, you keep saying them. Well, Amy Klobuchar's closer was full of unwitty jokes. Bloomberg said he's not asking for money. But you can go to Bloomberg.com or whatever the hell, Bloomberg 2020, I don't know. Go to his website or whatever. What a waste. I don't know why he's running. I don't know why he's here. Other than he's this big-ass ego. It's pointless, guys. A waste of time, Johnson. Pointless. Buttigieg. Buttigieg, a man who has no reason at all to be in this other than to talk. Then Warren. Warren talked about being a fighter. Well, you know what? I have a clip of the strongest of the closers here. Let's check that out.
Senator Warren.
I grew up fighting. I grew up out in Oklahoma, and I learned it probably from my mother. I watched when my daddy had a heart attack and didn't have any money coming in, when our car was lost and when we were on the edge of losing our home. I watched my mother fight to save our family. And I grew up fighting to save our family, my family. I eventually made it through school and spent my life as a teacher and looking into why it is that so many families across this country are struggling and why it gets worse year after year after year. I, for years, have fought for unions to say the way we're going to restructure this economy is we're going to make it easier to join a union and get more power into unions. To fight for students who have been cut out of opportunity over and over because of the rising cost of an education. Look, for me, I am, of all the people on this stage, I've been a politician the shortest time, but I've been the one out fighting for families the longest time. I promise you this, give me a chance, I'll go to the White House, and I'll fight for your family.
Thank you, Senator.
Vice President Biden.
I'm running because so many people.
Please give us a moment. We'll clear the room and let Senator Biden, you have 1 minute.
Look, I'm running because so many people are being left behind. People I grew up with in Scranton. When my dad lost his job, lost his house, had to move. We moved to Claymont. We found ourselves in a position where we had little ability to get anything done. And my dad worked like hell. I learned a lot. I've been knocked down a whole hell of a lot. I know what it's like to be knocked down. But I know you have to get back up. We have to provide some safety and security for the American people. Right here in Nevada, the site of the most significant mass murder in American history, guns. Our kids are getting sent to school, having to hide under desks, learn how to run down corridors to avoid being shot. It's immoral. I'm the only one that's beaten the NRA nationally, and I beat them twice. With regard to health care, it also is something that is a right. Obamacare has to be expanded. It can be, in fact, cover everybody. And lastly, I think it's important that on day one, we deal with sending an immigration bill to the desk. The only person in here has the worst record on immigration is Bernie, because Bernie voted against the 2007 bill. Right. Had, in fact, that immigration bill passed, there would be 6 million members would be now American citizens.
All right. Senator Sanders, you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Unfortunately, RULAC, among other groups, Latino groups, saw that bill having provisions akin to slavery, Joe. But the bottom line is all of us are united in defeating the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. That we agree on. But where we don't agree, I think, is why we are today the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Why 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America when 500,000 people sleep out on the street. Why hundreds of thousands of bright young kids can't afford to go to college and 45 million remain in student debt. Bottom line here, real change never takes place from the top on down, never takes place from an oligarchy controlled by billionaires. We need to mobilize millions of people to stand up for justice. That's our campaign. Join us at BernieSanders.com. Thank you.
Senator, thank you. Folks, that concludes tonight's debate. Our thanks to my fellow moderators.
All right, so that was a debate. It was an interesting debate, a debate full of fire, fury, and losers and foes and fireworks and some deep, dark pits of hell as well. But, and through it all, we have winners, we have losers, and we have people who need to get gone. So let's talk about that, guys, to wrap this up. Loser. Make no surprise. No one should be surprised. There should be no doubt about it that one of the losers tonight was none other than the billionaire himself, Michael Bloomberg. Bloomberg came out on this stage to high anticipation. People wanted to see exactly what this man had in store for us. He's spending all this money in all of these states, all these Super Tuesday states. He's showing that he has deep pockets, but he has no deep convictions for the people. There was nothing that he really hung his hat on tonight. He wasn't very witty or sharp with the comebacks regarding his record, which he had to know was going to be mainly focused on immigration or stop and frisk and redlining. These are the issues that have been in the news. It was all there. You had to know that's what it was going to be. And instead of having something ready, locked, and loaded, maybe a statement of contrition, a real sincere, from the gut statement of contrition, not this lackadaisical, smooth it over, also make a defense for thyself, lame-ass excuse. Michael Bloomberg came with nothing. In fact, there were times when he sounded petty and pompous and arrogant, and those were his good moments. Like the part when they said, hey, when are you going to release your taxes? And he's like, hey, man, I'm rich as hell. It's not like I can just go to TurboTax. I got a lot of money in a lot of countries. What do you want from me? Not like you guys, working for a living. You're taking a page out of that jackass Jason Johnson, that scumbag fake moderator from MSNBC, working for the Ham Saban, root-owned, fake black publication owned by this guy from the APAC or whatever the hell, who boosted Hillary Clinton in 2008 and 2016. Here's the talking point right from that guy, comparing himself, a billionaire worth $60 billion, to Bernie Sanders because Bernie owns 3 houses, one in Vermont, a place in D.C., in a summer cottage or something. Totally omitting the fact that even Joe Biden said he was broke, one of the poorest people in Congress, until he wrote a book that sold more than he expected. And the same thing happened to Bernie. So Michael Bloomberg is a loser tonight, a loser because he wanted this. He spent $300 million to get his ass handed to him on national TV. I mean, we put it that way, man. It's like, wow, what an idiot. He spent a lot of money to get beat up tonight, and he got beat up, he did. There were times I felt like maybe someone should call the cops because this is abuse. This is seniors abuse. Okay, next. Another loser tonight for me was Amy Klobuchar. Yeah, Amy Klobuchar was not good tonight. It's just so much I want to hear about the flyover state and the snow and the blizzard and your hair and your dad and the money in the jar or the cookie jar or whatever. No one wants to hear that anymore. And you know what? You should have to do opposition research on your counterparts like Pete Buttigieg. You shouldn't be able to just cry and act like you're being attacked when all you did is bring up your voting record. Like, that's your record. And what do we say, guys? If you can't defend your record, maybe you shouldn't run. Or maybe you should have made a better record. That's the other part of that. So, no, I think Amy Klobuchar was a loser tonight. She was not effective. There were times that Elizabeth Warren had to come in and help her. Like Elizabeth Warren, there was a second exchange with Buttigieg against Klobuchar, and it was so embarrassing for Klobuchar. In came Elizabeth Warren to take some of the heat off of Klobuchar because she was getting beat up that bad. It was that embarrassing for Amy. Folks, it is what it is. She's had a hell of a run, which leads us to goners. Goners tonight. Who should get gone? Hey, I leave no doubts about it. I think Amy Klobuchar just saw her last debate. I think this is it. This will wrap her up. This will finish her off. I mean, look, she's outperformed herself. Why stick around? What, for those few delegates left in Minnesota? She's not going to win anything in Nevada. She's not going to perform well in South Carolina. When's she going to do well? Minnesota? That's probably the next time that she does well. Come on, guys, let's face it. Put a fork in Amy. She's done. And no one has to chase you, Amy. It's just time to go. You've done better than Kamala, the other cop in the race, and now it's a wrap. It is what it is. Be happy you were here this long. And that's the way I see it. It should be hard being president. It shouldn't be easy. And you can try really hard. And all the time that you were doing your thing or whatever. Nah, not enough. Time to go. Now, this other person should be gone. But I don't think they will go. They should go, though. I don't see a pathway for them. And that person's Pete Buttigieg. I don't understand what people see in Pete. He's the most vacuous, air-hitted, lame, unspecific, airy, platitude-infested. Throw it against the wall, say anything. Pete says the least amount of tangible things, but uses the most words to say them, of anybody on that stage. Pete Buttigieg should not be in this race. The fact that Pete Buttigieg is still in this race is only a credit to those people who want to feel good but don't want to do good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Pete's not offering anything to working people struggling. That's not what he's about. He's about what we can't do, what's too much to do, and then he takes cheap shots. When is it finally going to catch up to Pete? When are people finally going to see he's an empty suit? When will it happen? I don't care how many languages you know if there's no real empathy in your policies. I don't care how many words, fancy words you can use in your closing argument or in your statements or in your comebacks if at the end of the day there's nothing in it for us. Pete Buttigieg is in it for himself. It's been transparently obvious from the beginning. He's interesting because he is different. But all of us are different, Johnson. Everyone on that stage is different. Everyone's unique. All of us are God's special little snowflakes. That doesn't mean you should be president. Hell, you shouldn't even have been mayor. Now let's go to winners, guys. This is a close one. Hey, it's a close one. Because I really love the way Elizabeth Warren performed tonight. She was good. I want to call her the comeback kid tonight. Elizabeth Warren saved her presidency. She saved her run for the nomination, I should say. Not the presidency. She saved her run. She saved her political nomination career. It would have been a wrap, man. Like, seriously. I think Elizabeth Warren pulled herself out of the ashes tonight. This was a great performance by Elizabeth Warren. Of course, I disagree with her taking a shot at a healthcare plan that she was running on. But other than that, she did pretty good. I mean, you got to give it to her. She went after Bloomberg with a lot of gusto. And if it weren't for the fact that no one was going after her and she did not have to take on incoming fire, I would give her the win. But I would give her a close second to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders overperformed tonight. He did an excellent job. They came at him about his health. They came at him about Medicare for all once again. I mean, at some point, it's like, hey, I believe in Medicare for all. I wrote the damn bill. Shut up already. I mean, at some point, every time, every debate, there's no new scrutiny. It's always the same. It's redundant. But still somehow he weathers the storm, and he still was fighting back, and he was still hitting Bloomberg hard with substantive hits and hits on Joe Biden. So I think that Bernie Sanders, based on his performance, that he was almost as sharp on Bloomberg, pushing back on Bloomberg, and he was the only one. He was the only one. Bernie Sanders was the only one on that stage taking on the elites. He was the only one calling out income inequality, the only one rolling up his sleeves and fighting in front of the world against the billionaire for workers. Bernie did that. Where was everybody else? MIA on that issue. They let Bernie take on the billionaire alone when it came to money and capitalism. And as Bernie put it, as Bernie cited MLK's quote, which he gave him credit for, Joe Biden, you should learn something about giving people credit for quotes. He said, the socialism in this country, as MLK stated, socialism for the corporations, rugged individualism for the workers, everyday Americans, and that's what we have. And that was his pushback. And I think that is what sealed it for me to say that Bernie Sanders had the strongest night, because unlike Elizabeth Warren, he had to play both offense and defense. Now, as for Joe Biden, I don't want to leave him out. We got to critique him. Joe Biden did okay. A lot of the heat was off his ass tonight, like not much incoming. But the fact that Joe Biden really doesn't have an answer for his tenure as vice president, the fact that all he can do is run away from criticisms, and you can hear the people in Nevada. You know what they were saying? They were saying, we don't want you here, Joe. They were saying, get out of our state, Joe. That's what they were saying, because they remember very clearly that Joe Biden and the Obama administration deported a lot of their family members, a lot of their friends, had them living in fear, just like Trump does. And though the Democrats pretend that it was just Trump who invented deportation, the people of Nevada know it's not just Trump. They know who else did it. They know who else held the title. And they ain't going to forget. They're not going to forget now, and they're not going to forget if Joe Biden were to become the nominee. It's part of the reason why he should not become the nominee, because all of a sudden, that's off the table. See how it works? If you nominate a guy who has the same deficiencies as Trump, you now have, it's a wash. Bloomberg is a wash on corruption and racism and bigotry, which Democrats love to use, and Joe Biden's a wash on the same criteria and throw in a wash on immigration. I mean, why? Why would you pick that guy? All right, guys, let's go to comments. I want to read your super chats. I want to see what people have to say. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to make additional comments if you want to. I'm about to read them. I just want to remind you that I'm on Twitter. It's Real Tim Black. Whenever there's a debate, I'm always live tweeting up to the minute while I'm getting the show ready. And I'm also on Facebook as Real Tim Black. Find me on Instagram at Tim Black at Night. And check my YouTube channel. Subscribe for the show. If you like what you see, you think, hey, this Tim Black guy, I like the way he calls it straight. He's pretty good. This guy's interesting. He's entertaining, but he's also very informative. Hey, I'm going to go with this guy. He seems sincere. That's because I am sincere, Johnson. I'm not paid by any of these organizations. I'm not funded by any parties. I speak the truth for the people. That's what we do it. That's why we got in it. So I'm offering you this option. Become a member of the Tim Black Wolfpack. Join us. Join our community. We're a growing community, as you can see. Go to patreon.com, Tim's Take Live. Do it today. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. And get your news from a source you can trust. And with that, what y'all had to say?